I have visited Iceland for landscape photography repeatedly for 10 years, and this year I captured some of my personal favorite and most epic photos from Iceland of all time. As it turned out, all these photos also fell in the range of a wide-angle lens, and luckily I had brought both my Laowa 10mm, Sony 16-35mm f4, and my drone's main camera is also a wide-angle lens, although I did end up in a situation where it wasn't wide enough. So lean back and enjoy this epic wide-angle Iceland South Coast winter trip. A must-visit location on the south coast is the waterfall Seljalandsfoss, and because of the weather not being too cold, we could actually walk behind it this year. Usually during winter it is closed off because the entire area is covered by a several inches layer of ice, but apparently not this year. To be honest, as beautiful as Seljalandsfoss is, this location is generally a summer location, as you can capture the sunset behind the waterfall or have the sunset light up the waterfall, and during winter the sun doesn't even hit the waterfall. During winter there is another waterfall which can deliver this exact phenomenon, and I'll show that in a moment. I got a few photos with the 10mm ultra wide angle at Seljalandsfoss, but it is actually at a nearby location I finally got a photo I'm very satisfied with. Just to the north of Seljalandsfoss you will find a cave wherein there is a waterfall. I have lost count of how many times I have visited this place, but I have never really got a photo from there that I'm super happy with. Usually that's because I'm the one posing for the group in the photos. I also did this year, but once done, I was lucky enough to capture another person posing on the rock, and with the 10mm ultra wide angle, I could include the entire top of the cave, resulting in a super epic photo. If you're planning a trip to Iceland yourself, be sure to get my digital map with more than 100 photography locations all around Iceland. Each location has a link to the video where I cover how I would photograph it. You can easily integrate the map with Google Maps so that you always have it right by your hand. You can get it via the link down in the description. As mentioned, another waterfall does deliver the effect of being lit from behind, if you time it right, and after many years of repeatedly coming back to this location, I think I finally came away with my perfect photo.
So what you don't do for your group, so I was just posing down here behind so we can get that scale with this beautiful waterfall Kvernufoss. We just nailed the lighting here. You have to be at a specific time of day where you get the sun lighting up the valley right here. We are struggling a little bit with some low clouds, but in between we do get that clear sun shining through. I've been using my 10mm because it has a beautiful sun star. Honestly, it's way overkill. You can get a round with a 16mm in here and get the entire photo with the canyon wall up here to frame the waterfall. But at 10mm I can get like a strong foreground, I can get myself very, very small. And I can of course get that beautiful sun star from the Laowa 10mm. Yeah, absolutely gorgeous shot.
I flippin' love this photo. Besides looking so epic, it's also one of those that is technically hard to make. Give me a couple of minutes and I'll give you a technical explanation and analysis of why I love this photo, because I am sure many of you will actually benefit a lot from that. As mentioned, you need a specific lens to create this spiky and beautiful sun star. You can achieve beautiful sun stars with other lenses, but they are few and far between. Secondly, because of the spray, you need to keep cleaning the front element of the lens to get a mostly spotless photo. Thirdly, capturing the entire dynamic range actually doesn't require that much, but for safety and to get as much information to work with as possible, I did exposure bracket the photo. Fourthly, if that is even a word, I also needed to focus stack the photo to get the immediate foreground sharp, which I manually blended in post-processing. And finally, I also needed a photo with myself in the scene, requiring that I used the intervalometer to take several photos while I ran back and forth, making sure I got the photo without too much spray on the lens, and coordinating with the group to make sure they also got their shots. So it is juggling many balls at once. An unintended but cool feature is the big rainbow lens flare, which I actually think adds to the composition because of its placement in the darker area and lining up perfectly with the rounding of the cave. I also really like the strong sunbeams on either side of the waterfall, adding even more dynamics and complexity to the scene, yet helps guide the viewer's eye into the scene. And finally, although I did exposure bracket the photo, I went with the darkest exposure and fastest shutter speed for the brighter areas, because I really like how it froze the moment with tack sharp spray from the waterfall. The downside was a bit of extra noise because the original photo was quite dark, but in this specific circumstance, because of all the spray, the noise doesn't feel unnatural, and I just used the properly exposed parts from the overexposed photo for the foreground and roof of the cave. So a super complex photo, but one I am very happy with. And it's one of those photos where you just have to think about so many things, like scale, balance, depth, framing, focal length, direction, how to utilize the light and make the subject stand out, horizontal or vertical composition, and much more that are all creative, but to some extent also technical decisions to be made when making a complex photo like this. And this is all something I cover in my ebooks on composition and light, with minimal text, tons of examples, and extended EXIF data on the photos. You'll also know how I photographed the different photo examples. You can get the free light versions by signing up to my newsletter, or get the full versions either standalone or bundled up for a small discount. There is a link down in the description of the video for everything.
So we've come here to the infamous Black Beach. A bunch of us have pushed forward and are quite close to the sea stacks down here. And right now I'm photographing them with my 6-stop filter on, so I'm getting a little bit of a long exposure effect. And we're shooting into the sunrise. We've had this beautiful cloud above the sea stacks this morning. It was lit up with the most beautiful red colors during the first sun, during the sunrise, which looked super, super nice. So when you're on a beach like this, it's basically just trying to use those elements. So the beautiful cloud above the sea stacks, include the sea stacks, include the ocean, and just take everything in to a photo and try to find a good balance in that photo. And that's exactly what I've tried to do. As you can see here, I still have some of the cloud above the sea stacks, and then I have the waves here. I also have the line coming up from the corner here of the cliffs over there, going down, and then from time to time a wave comes up and fills up the foreground. So I have this diagonal going down, and I have the wave action coming in and leading you in to all the interest here with the sea stacks and the cloud and the colors and the rising sun, of course.
You can also photograph the sea stacks Reynisdrangar from the air, which some of us did one evening. Out of nowhere, the clouds started capturing some light, and I knew immediately that if I was to benefit from the clouds, I had to get close to the sea stacks to have the clouds behind the sea stacks. However, if you're too close to the sea stacks, you can't capture them all in one photo because the wide-angle lens of the drone simply isn't wide enough. It is, however, very easy to widen your focal length, and that is simply just to make a panorama. This required me to turn the camera vertically, which is now possible with the Mavic 4 Pro, and take several photos with a bit of overlay that could then be stitched into a panorama. Over the years, Lightroom and Camera Raw have actually become really good at stitching panoramas, so something like moving water usually stitches without issues. And wow, did the results also deliver. Despite having been to Iceland more times than I can count by now, I've never been able to capture such a beautiful sky above Reynisdrangar from such a close-up angle. I love the panoramic wide-angle perspective as it distorts the scene enough to give a good sense of depth, and although I do not have an immediate foreground, this photo doesn't really need one to work. And in the end, this photo is definitely also one of my favorite photos of the year.
I don't think there is a more beautiful phenomenon in entire Iceland than sunrise with direct sun on the Diamond Beach. Wow! When you get that backlit ice and the direct sun lighting it up. Oh, that's magic. So look at this right here. Have the waves coming in, this beautiful little piece of ice. I have a quite low position because I want to break the horizon as I write about in my eBooks. So I want to get all the way down here so you can see how I use the tip of the ice here. It comes above the horizon. It gives a more like three-dimensionality to the scene. And then once the water comes in, or the waves come in, I start photographing them. As you can see, I'm quite underexposed because I have the sun in there, and I want to make sure that a bit too tight. So yeah, when the waves come in, be very careful that they don't hit your camera because salt water and camera equipment is not the best cocktail in the world. Here comes a big wave again. Yeah. I could have taken that one.
Because the chunks of ice this year were a bit smaller than last year, I generally found that the 16 to 35mm lens delivered a better result than the 10mm. I did try out the 10mm, but soon found out that it was impractical, that I had to be too close to the ice for it to take up a proper part of the photo.
So the sun is coming up and we have these beautiful chunks of ice. They're not super big today, but they are big enough so that you can put the camera down low to the water. Just be careful of those waves because when they come fast and it's about retreating. But just now I've been photographing these two chunks here in the background just underneath the sun where the other lady is standing right now. Just come really down low and just hammer it off as the waves came in. I just enjoy photographing at the ice beach. It's such a dynamic process because everything is changing all the time. The light is changing, the ice is changing, the compositions are changing. Not two compositions are exactly the same. The principles are the same. Wave coming in, shoot, shoot, shoot. Wave going out, shoot, shoot, shoot. Have a piece of ice in an optimal location. And the lady got caught in a wave here in the background. Well, part of the ice beach. If you haven't been wet at the ice beach, you haven't been properly at the ice beach. Here are some photos.
I did have to do a bit of masking and edit the different parts of the photo individually. It's something I generally recommend when editing. Global adjustments are great, but don't forget the local adjustments. One thing I have learned over the years editing photos from the ice beach is that it is one of the very few places where the texture slider can actually do something good for the photos. If you just select whatever piece of ice you're photographing using one of the masking tools, the object selection tool usually does the job, then you can enhance the texture of the ice by sliding the texture slider to the right. If you struggle with editing, be sure to use the discount code to get 15% off when you enroll in my big Photoshop for Landscape Photographers post-processing course. It's here I share my techniques for editing photos, and over the years I've made upgrade videos with the newer features that have been added. I cover everything from introducing you to the programs and basic editing and masking to advanced techniques such as blending and editing with luminosity masks. Cleaning your photos properly, focus stacking in different conditions, focal length blending, sky replacement, and start to finish editing of 11 different examples of landscape photos. The link and coupon code is down in the description of the video. Each year we also include a trip to an ice cave. The ice caves change a lot from year to year and not two are the same. Some years they're big and other years they're small, some years they're predominantly black, due to a lot of ash in that part of the glacier where the ice cave is found, and other years you can be lucky and have more of the blue color. This year we knew the caves were a bit on the small side, and because of that I generally always recommend to just photograph at the widest possible focal length to make the cave and photo look as impressive as possible. For me that is at 10mm, and for this specific photo I even had to make it panoramic to make the scene look even larger. There was also another angle in this small ice cave, and when we headed over to the other ice cave that was a bit larger, I was also on posing duty, so while I had my camera on the intervalometer, the rest of the group could get their photos, having Jeroen helping them out. I'm not photographing many abstract photos, but when visiting one of the glaciers I did notice this place where apparently a piece of the glacier had fallen off and the water below had frozen. Photographing straight down with the drone actually delivered some really cool shots. On the very last day of the trip we visited the Golden Circle, and as you saw in last week's video we visited the beautiful waterfall Kvernufoss. We also visited Gljúfrabúi and Geysir, where we photographed the Geysir structure. And with the beautiful low winter sun we could get it beautifully backlit. Be sure to get my 2026 calendar if you haven't already, and if you want to learn much more about photography composition and how to use light and color to your benefit and how to edit your photos, check out the links in the description of the video. If you haven't seen last week's video that also covers a part of this Iceland trip, but with a focus on more moody black and white and long exposure photography, be sure to do so here. See you next time.